Hi friends, it's Carl here again with Calm Survival, and today we're looking at the more advanced things that we can do with alcohol stoves in general and with the Trangia. Now, going back to the beginning a little bit, remember that we have the fuel inside the main body and we're burning the vapor. So by heating the brass body, it helps boil the alcohol, causes the more vapor to leave through the jet holes, and increases our fuel burn rate and our heat output. So one of the things to always make sure, no matter what kind of alcohol stove, is just make sure that the vents are staying clean. As food spills and things like that, you have to clean them periodically. Because heat inside the main body is important, if we just rest this on the ground, that's going to be continually cooling, and it's going to reduce the amount of heat output that we're going to get. So we do want to use the stand, and we want to keep it up off the ground. Now, in very cold weather, to assist with priming the stove, getting that initial heat in, we can use this little ridge. This will hold a small amount of fuel and that will burn quite rapidly, adding a lot of heat. If you have the cold weather set, there's a cup that sort of sits underneath and you can add fuel to that. Now, if you had to, you could just simply warm this up in your hands inside your coat. But we're talking sub-zero Celsius temperatures at that point. Really don't need to worry about it until there's actual ice happening. But we'll run through with the fuel just to give an idea again of what this is going to look like. So in this case, I'm also going to add a little bit of fuel to that outside ring. I've put 20 mils inside the stove. Now it is a little bit breezy today, so we will probably see the effect of that. We can see the stove flaring up, and then once the stove starts to settle in, then we can add our pot. Now, if you have the type of alcohol stove where the stove and the pot sit together, keep in mind that the body of the stove is going to be transmitting heat to the pot, and that's going to reduce the amount of fuel that can burn until the water is boiling. That's going to just lead to a slower boil time. With the Trangia in its proper configuration, the heat isn't pulled from the stove body itself, and that just helps maintain a more efficient boil. So we can see we do have a fairly yellow flame, which is meaning that there's more fuel escaping, and it's not terribly efficient at the moment. That's all right. We're going to add our pot, and that's going to show us something important. Now, because there's cold water in the pot, the vapors from the stove are actually condensing on the outside. When you burn alcohol, one of the byproducts is water, so there will be a bit of condensation. That's also going to capture a lot of soot and some of the other components. Depending on the alcohol that you have, depending on the brand, there'll be other components that are going to be being deposited on the stove. Okay, so now we've got quite a bit of motion happening in the water. So we've got the water fairly hot. Fuel is probably, well, it's not quite burned out yet. Okay. And you can see there is some soot on the bottom of the pot. You can see where the pot holders sit. Now that's not a lot, but we didn't have it burning for all that long. So we can see that we've got our water boiling. We've got still a little bit of fuel left. We started with 50 mils of fuel. The burner holds quite a bit more, but it looks like there's about 10 or so milliliters of fuel left in the bottom. I'm going to go get rid of this boiled water, and I'll show you what the bottom of the pot looks like. Now here we can see the soot starting to build up on the bottom of the pot. Now you can imagine that if you were doing any real cooking, so you have some rice in there for another several minutes, I mean this didn't take very long to boil, you would get a lot more buildup. And we're going to look at some techniques to help prevent that. Let me clean this pot, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we've got our pot boiling again. Let's take a look at it. Get rid of the water. So these are boiling in right around 10 minutes or so. And again, we've just got a little bit of fuel residue left in the bottom. And looks about the same. Now what did we do different? This time I put a thin layer of dishwashing liquid over the bottom of the pot. So we're going to see if that made any difference at all. Well, a little bit. So obviously if that was going to work, you definitely need it to be on a lot thicker. You can see where it sort of pooled up a little bit. And I used very, very watered down dishwashing liquid. But that's something that definitely can help you out a little bit if you're getting that soot buildup. Obviously it'll get tacky. You have to be careful where you set the pot down. Alright, we're going to clean this up, and we've got one more thing to try. Alright, so we've got another good rolling boil going. Let's take a little check. It's been a little bit more than 10 minutes. And again, we're getting near to the end of the fuel on this one. You can see that the stove is running a little bit differently this time. Alright, so what we have here is a pot that's almost boiled. It's been running for about 10 minutes. Just get rid of the water here. And you can see that in 10 minutes, there is a lot less buildup than we've seen on the other ones. Now, the auto contrast on the camera is making that a little bit difficult to see, but hopefully it reads. And what we've done is 50 mils of water or 50 mils of alcohol and 10 mils of water. Now in that 10 minutes, you can see we've got a lot less buildup. There's still a fair amount of fuel left. It burns a little bit slower when you've added the water to it, and obviously there's 10 mils more starting volume. So why is this all important? Well, if you're on a scouting trip or something where you're borrowing one of these pots, it better be nice and shiny when you send it back to your scoutmaster or whoever you borrowed it from. And it can just make life a lot simpler. This residue doesn't really rub off as much, but you can see any of the places where it started to turn to soot. It's just more things that you've got to clean up. And at the end of a trip, having things as nice and neat and tidy as possible is always an advantage. So hopefully you picked up a few things that you can use to experiment there's so many variables. You just have to work a lot of it out yourself, because the particular fuel you buy, where you are, the kind of foods you're cooking, and all those sorts of things will make such a difference. Um, but it's a good learning experience while you're doing it. So hope that shows you that these things aren't nearly as scary as a lot of people think. I mean, we wouldn't use them with, the size of children. That these are very commonly, you know, used with. Lots of school kids use these every day the world over and have been doing for a very long time. So hopefully that gives you some more ideas of what to work with. We'll catch you again next time.